this is Fleet Commander Legend Lootz, who's going to talk to us about pirate crypto. And we've got him on the line now. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, hey Dave. How are you? It was really nice meeting you at Gerald Salente's event last year.
Yes. And I was going to get you on to talk, and we talked about that, and then I lost the information, but I'm glad that we were able to connect up with you. And I want you to talk to people about this, because I think this is, how do I refer to you? Lootz? Is that how you want to be referred to as?
Lootz.
Lootz?
Yeah, Lootz is good. It's my nickname.
Okay, good. All right. And of course, we're talking about a crypto coin that you're affiliated with somehow, and you can tell us how you're affiliated with it. It's called Pirate Coin. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got into all of this and how this one is different.
All right. So I started in cryptocurrency about 11 years ago. I knew Bitcoin about 11 years ago now. And when I first started, I thought this was going to be the money I could say, you know, I could keep my privacy with. Nobody could intervene in my business anymore. Problem is, about 4 or 5 years later, they started choking the exchanges, and that's the only centralization point that they could choke you at, right? So they started asking people for their information, and we started realizing the problem. And the problem is that it's all transparent. Bitcoin is transparent. So if you don't have privacy, decentralization means nothing. You might as well just go back to the bank, because you're still going to. If they can see it, they're still going to come to your door with guns, and they're going to ask you for the taxes, right? And
that's
they're
right.
going to ask you for. They're going to hold you accountable for what you have, or how long you've had it, right? So, so privacy financially, privacy is the most important thing we need. My grandpa used to be able to hide the money in the mattress. Yeah. We don't have that anymore.
That's right.
You know, so these days we need fungibility, like Austrian economics dictates, right? We need fungibility in our money. Ron Paul, big proponent of gold, right? Why is gold better? It's because it's fungible. Well, that's the difference between Pirate Chain and all the cryptocurrencies out there, is that it is fungible. The history of the coin does not affect you when you have it at the time. If somebody tries to look up what you have, where you have it, they can't see anything on Pirate Chain. That's what makes it special.
And of course, there's
just like Monero.
I talked about exactly. You talked about just like Monero. I had talked to John McAfee years ago about Monero, and it might have been I didn't know about Pirate at the time, but it might have been the only one at that time. I'm not sure, but that's the key issue that's different. And that's the privacy. And we're seeing the government controls, and everybody saw this big way with Trudeau and what he did to people, seizing the accounts. But that is the direction in which they're moving. He woke people up because he jumped ahead of the whole game, but they're converging into this. And so, as you pointed out, just simply saying to the crypto exchanges, we want you reporting stuff. Then they added a little checkbox on the income tax saying, have you bought or sold any crypto this last year to incriminate people and that type of thing. And so it's all been converging in this. And now we've got big moves made by the Biden administration. You have somebody who was involved in the persecution of Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road. He's now put in charge of a new organization that is set up to confiscate crypto. And so the implication is that anybody that is doing something outside of their system is a criminal. Because they're going to make you a criminal, just like, you're guilty of hate speech if you're saying something that they hate. So it's all converging into that. And of course, moving us towards a situation where everything that you do with a central bank digital currency is going to be observed. But I think the key thing is privacy. And I think that's why it's very important to talk about that. And I want people to understand a little bit about what differentiates Pirate Chain and Monero from the rest of these cryptocurrencies. Talk about how this, what is different about it that gives you privacy.
Yes. So if you were to do a transaction on any of these coins, any of them, then 99% of all the coins you're investing in or you're playing with are all transparent coins. If you take your transaction and you look it up, you could look up how far back it goes and how much is in your wallet, and the banks could see that too. So with Pirate Chain, you don't have that. When you make a transaction in Pirate or Monero, you cannot see anything. You can't. You can try to look it up, but you're not going to see anything, and that's what gives you privacy. But if you wanted somebody to see it, you do have that option. Your wallet can generate a viewing key if you want to pay your taxes, and you could give them the viewing key, and they could see it. But remember, that comes with consent, right? You need consent, or else it's rape.
Yeah.
And so they got to come. They got to ask you. Listen, we want to take some of your money. Okay, at that point in time, we go, why? Why do you want the money? Explain to me why I'm paying my taxes. Where is this going? Right. So this is the power that it gives you. It gives you that leverage that you never had before, because they take it before it gets in your hand.
Well, privacy in and of itself is something I think everybody is starting to understand the value of, because it is rapidly disappearing from us, and consent and the rest of these things. It was George Gilder who wrote a book just a couple of years ago talking about life after Google. And what he was saying, Lootz, was the fact that Google's business model, as a matter of fact, all the big corporations' models on the internet, is to monetize your privacy. They sell your privacy and your personal data to everybody else. That is their business model. They're set up to eliminate privacy. And it's not just selling you out to people who want to sell you an ice cream bar. Okay. It's also selling you out to the government. And so they're you're being bought and sold on these different places. And so he said, I think that it's time for us to have a new paradigm, which makes this business model of Google and the rest of these people based on, using information about you to make money. I think people are going to start demanding that. And he said, even though I'm in my 80s, I think we're going to see that pretty soon. And I think when we see what happened with Trudeau and others, it makes it even more apparent that people are starting to understand the value of privacy and how it can be abused and misused against them. Just take a look at all the people who went to January the 6th who didn't do anything that was violent, didn't even walk into an open Capitol building. Some people walked in there. They didn't fight any guards to get in there, but they walked in there, but they grabbed their information off of their phone and other things and turning their life into absolute hell and persecuting them. Just because you're not doing anything wrong doesn't mean that the government won't use your violated privacy to come after you. So that's one of the reasons why privacy is important. And I think you're right at the juncture of this, and that's a key thing. Let me ask you, when you're talking about how we have the portals going into the different crypto exchanges. At what point do you start getting this privacy? Because if you go through one of these portals, how do you buy the private currency, and how is this kept private while this mining and things like that are going on? I mean, and address some of the issues. Well, let's talk about that first. Yeah, how do you get into this private world privately?
Okay, there's a few ways of doing it. One is localmonero.co is the website where people can purchase Monero, and then using Monero, like you would use Bitcoin, you could send it over to other exchanges like Polarity or Trade Ogre, which has Pirate, and you could just buy the Pirate with Monero there, and it's all KYC free. And that's what people have been using for probably the last couple of years to get some Pirate.
Tell people what KYC is.
Know your customer.
Okay.
So what the government likes to do is they like to deputize these businesses, right?
That's right.
And they say, and they say, hey, listen, you got to rat out all your loyal customers because we told you to, and these poor guys, they have to go, they actually have to rat out their friends, their customers that have been, their customers for years.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's what AML KYC is. They actually cause problems. I believe they cause problems for businesses because, you've developed these friendships and these relationships, right? And then all of a sudden you got to take this personal private information and you got to give it to strangers. Why would you do that to your friend?
Well, you look at for years, we've had these know your customer rules with banks, right? And what do we see this last 2 years? We had, the deputization of restaurants and every kind of public venue to say, okay, now you're going to ask people about their health and medical records. That's never been allowed before. You're not allowed to ask me, as some people have rightly said, you want to ask me about my vaccination status? Well, then I want you to tell me about your sexual disease status. Have you had tests for sexually transmitted diseases? And are you clear of that or whatever? We've never been allowed to ask people questions about their medical background before, but they deputized all these people. And so what they're doing is these same types of concepts, this know your customer stuff from the banks, metastasizing out to everybody and making them all law enforcement officers with the same kind of situation, holding a gun to their head and saying, if you don't act as our law enforcement arm, we're going to put you out of business, which is what they've been doing to financial institutions for a long time.
Yep, 100%. So what's coming is the new Techonomy, I call it, right? The new economy, the technical economy. And I think that's coming through blockchain. Now, one coin is not going to be the answer. All of them are going to be the answer. So there's a lot of solutions coming to decentralize the exchanges. So you have things like atomic DEX, which is a decentralized solution for exchanges right now. And it works. It's hard to use, but it works. There's going to be a lot more decentralized exchanges coming out. Another one called Cordal is another one, and there's tons more. Blockstack, I think, has one, and we're going to see that grow. And once decentralized exchanges become a commonplace for people to go get crypto, those centralized exchanges that they're choking right now will be done. Yeah. At that point, it'll be your choice if you want to participate in their KYC baloney.
Let me ask you this. How does, because the thing I'm having trouble understanding is when you've got your money in a bank, a KYC institution, and you want to get into Monero or something like that, they're still going to see that there, right? That money is still going to be there, and so you're not going to be able to hide that initial seed capital. Perhaps you might be able to, conduct business activity and make profits or something in the Monero or the pirate chain world, right? But the entrance into that is going to be visible to them as well. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. There's no way that you can. Well,
yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
So if they can see the money you pull out of your bank all the time. I don't use banks. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to use banks anymore. I really don't see it anymore. It costs you more money to drive to the bank than the interest you're getting. But that aside, so these banks, we're not going to need them anymore. They're old. You are the bank now. And we got to go back to the times when men were men. And they held a gun and they had their satchel on their hips with their gold, right? Right. You want my money? Come and get it, and we'll see what happens.
That's right. Well, that's the key thing, and I guess when you look at this, once you get into that system, once you're established within Monero, or once you're established within Pirate Chain, then you got your own wallet that you hold, and other people, as you're doing selling people goods or services or whatever, if they're into if they're in that environment, then they can transact with you wallet to wallet. Is what you're saying then, right?
Correct. With no intermediaries, and it's a P2P transaction. So there's nobody that could come and steal your money anymore. If the convoys used Pirate Chain, they'd have no issues with banks taking their money or holding them, or people getting fired for donating. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. All right, so this is the tyranny that we need to stop, and the only way to stop it is to change the currency, to change what we're using now, because it's tyrannical. Mm-hmm. And I want to tell you about the economy, right? So all these coins out there, there's a lot of them. Each one does something special. Right, so we got ones that are creating applications, and we got ones that are creating inheritances, where you could create an inheritance for your son, and in 30 years he gets it. The smart contract unlocks and he gets it. I mean, there's a whole new economy that cannot be stopped. Now the thing with blockchain is, when they came out with it, they started demonizing it. Remember, and now they're playing ball with us. Right? Mm-hmm. You want to play ball with us. because they found out that Bitcoin can be controlled, right, over time, and now they go, oh well, now we could see everything. They have a group called CipherTrace that can see everything on the blockchain and puts it in a database and can easily see what you're spending your money on. I mean, at that point, just go back to the bank.
Yeah.
Right? If you're using Bitcoin and these transparency coins, there's no point in using them if they could still hold you accountable and see everything you got. That's none of their business. It's nobody's business what you have. And that's what I've always been taught.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. I guess the key thing to establish this is to establish the trust, right? The thing that is fatal to any kind of a banking system is when everybody loses confidence in the currency. That's when you have the runs. That's when you, on the banks, and that's when you have the value go to zero. And so that's the key. You've got a couple of different issues that have to be addressed. That is the people technically understanding how to do this. I think people now understand why they want to do it, but it's the how. And then there's also the aspect of trust. How do you explain this to people when you talk about trust? What kind of transparency is there for people in terms of is the code that runs it?
Open source.
Okay, open source code.
Open source. So that's what this whole new economy is about. It's the FOSS ether, they call it, free open source software, and it's developers all over the world that just create because they're passionate about what they're creating, and then they make it open source, and that allows the whole world to use it, and it can no longer be taken down, and it can no longer be surveilled. It can't be censored by government. Right, so free open source software is the only way you should be. Open source software should be the only software you're using. If it's closed code, that means that somebody might have a vulnerability in there, and you don't know what they're spying on you because you can't see any of the code. But if you could see the code and the whole world could see the code, there's millions of people developers that will look at it and do their own audit on the code and say, okay, this looks safe, because I'd rather trust millions of people looking at my code, just my neighbors, normal people, than some company that you have to trust.
That's right.
And
with it being open source. With it being open source, even if you are not capable of reviewing the code, there's plenty of people out there who are, and because of that, if somebody were to find something that was an error or something that was a vulnerability or something that was intentionally devious, it would quickly be exposed and people would be talking about it. So that's the key thing. If the code is open source, even if you can't look at it, that is a point of trust that you don't have if something is closed. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things. First of all, you got a crypto podcast, don't you? Where can people find that crypto podcast?
Oh, it's on SoundCloud. I don't do it too often. I now do it on the Discord for Pirate.Black for Pirate. Every week we do a show or a talk on Wednesdays. So at 6:30 p.m. EST, if you come over, you can ask your questions. There's a whole community of over 10,000 people that love Pirate and love freedom. And they're more than happy to teach you anything you don't know. So there's really no excuse not to learn how to use these tools and these privacy tools. And, I wanted to also mention a book, Dave. Privacy is Power. If you guys don't understand what we're talking about here, how you're being surveilled, monitored through your TV, through your goddamn coffee machine, through your smart meter. If you don't understand what's happening to you, you need to understand what's happening to you. Yes. Everything you do in your life is being surveilled, and you need to put a stop to it. If you don't understand it, the book is Privacy is Power. It's a fantastic book, and once you're done with that book, you will understand why you need all these privacy tools. Did you author that, or did somebody else? No, somebody else. Okay. But I've read it over 6 times now, so it's a fantastic book. Do you know the name of the author? It might make it easier for people to find it. Privacy is Power. Do you know who wrote that, or do you remember? I'll look it up right now. It's a girl. I forgot her name. Well, that's okay. That's all right. People can find that. Privacy is Power. I'm sure they can find that even on a Google search engine that's designed to hide things, right? Carissa Veliz. Carissa Veliz.
Okay.
Veliz.
All right, good. Let's talk a little bit about how you can enhance your privacy, not just with the cryptocurrencies, but other things that people can do to enhance their privacy.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes. So you guys should be learning Linux. If you don't know how to use Linux, you should be separating what you do in your personal life from what you do in your regular life. And when I say regular life, I'm talking your corporate life, possibly, right? You go to your work. That should not be intermingled with what you do at home. Right? So when you go home, you should have a separate laptop just for your personal stuff. And that personal stuff should not have your real name on it, right? It should have Lootz on it or some nickname. Mm-hmm. So nothing could really be directed towards you. And then when you should have another computer where you do your normal social media, Facebook, if you still do that, which you shouldn't be, but if you still have the need to do that,
yeah,
then yes, have it on a separate computer with your real name and whatnot, and keep that separate from your private personal life and the private things you like to do on another laptop. And when using these laptops, you should have securities in place. You should have a VPN, number one. Me personally, I like Mullvad, Mullvad, because all you have to do is send over some crypto and they send you a key. They don't ask you for your name. They don't ask you for your email. Mm-hmm. That's why it's amazing. Mm-hmm. Right? So they're not putting you in a database like everything else. So you have your VPN, and then once you have your VPN active, you could put more VPNs. Because every single time you
hang on, let's interject here a little bit for some people in the audience. A VPN is a virtual private network, and so what that does is that hides your IP address, right? So that they cannot find where you are and that type of thing, and that is important. Again, in the past we'd look at this and say, well, what are you trying to hide? Are you going to be engaging in criminal activity? How many times have we seen in the last couple of years the government's criminalizing something that shouldn't be a crime? I mean, they're letting the criminals run free in the streets, but, hey, if you want to get together and meet with friends or even criticize what the government is doing when it locks everybody down and tells you that you're not essential, you want to criticize the government? Oh, well, now you're a person of interest. Now you are a domestic terrorist if you talk to other people. And so this is the world that we live in. It's naive to think that the government is not going to label you as a criminal. Just look at the way that Trudeau responded to the Freedom Convoy, calling them racist, calling them extremists, violent extremists, and domestic terrorists. None of that was true. So they can label you that way, and this is why you need to have this kind of privacy. But continue on with the VPN and the IP address surveillance and things like that.
And any information they find will always be used against you, whether you know it or not.
That's right.
They will always use it, and they're recording, and they're always gathering intelligence because that's their job, right? When back in the day when my house got robbed, all they do is show up and they take a report. They don't, unlike if I called Mario, Mario would come with his gun and he'd take care of the situation. Right, but no, these guys they come and all they what happened? I didn't call you here to so you could ask me questions. I didn't call you here for that, right? And that's unfortunately how the world works right now.
Oh yeah,
because if we had the mafia and some of those protective services around still, we would actually be protected against. I believe there's a resistance, right? There's an equilibrium where you need certain factions to oppose what's going on right now, but since they eliminated them all, they're running all over us.
That's right. And what they've done is they've eliminated different communities that we've created. And you're talking about, of course, everybody can see it, and Mario Puzo is the godfather, right? They'd go to him for protection because, they were kind of an isolated community or whatever, and the police were not responsive. So they had essentially set up a community. Now, the community was involved in some other things, but primarily the people that were there were looking at the Godfather as a community that was going to protect them. And we're talking about all these people who are monitoring what you're doing. Geospatial intelligence has been the fastest growing aspect of the internet, and it coincided with the practicality of the internet. Once it became practical with the switching circuitry and that sort of thing, they jumped into it with both feet. As a matter of fact, the CIA was funding through a venture capital firm, Incutel. They didn't even try to hide it for once. And they were openly funding these companies that would compete with each other, but they made sure that all the competitors were their guys. And so they're using this to identify. With geospatial intelligence, they want to be able to identify you. They want to be able to identify your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, and don't tell me that they're not going to come after you for religious beliefs. We've already seen that in the last couple of years as well. So if you resist or criticize what this government is doing, you now become their enemy. This is why privacy is important. Talk a little bit about some of the other things that you can do to protect yourself from surveillance, Lootz.
Yeah, so your phone, number one. So you got the VPNs down, and you can use more than one VPN. I suggest you use 2 or 3, because even if they do go to that VPN company and they find out where your real IP address is, it'll just go over to the next VPN service, and then they have to go subpoena them for your information, and it's a chain link all the way down to the point where it's just too expensive to continue investigating you. So remember that. So I know a guy, he has 9 VPNs active at the same time. And it would drive them nuts to try to figure out where you are, because it would just go from they'd have to travel from one VPN service to the next one. Oh, let me see the logs. And they give them the logs, and it just leads them to the next VPN service, right? So it's a great tactic to use, guys. You can use Tor and I2P, Invisible Internet Project. Tor is more for cruising the web, but it's kind of compromised these days. They say most of the nodes are compromised by who. So try not to use that. Tor, I like I2P because it has a lot of bandwidth, and so I would rather use that. But that's more for that's not for the the normal people. That takes a lot of learning. But if you can learn it. I mean, Google is good for at least one thing. It's good for learning things, right?
Right. And that's the key thing, I think, Lootz, is the overhead in terms of learning how to use these tools, right? There's some overhead in getting into the dark web. There's some overhead in terms of figuring out how to use crypto, how to make sure you don't lose your passwords. I mean, everybody's got a tale about, I had Bitcoin back in the day and I had so much of it and I lost it or whatever. So that's a key thing, is making sure that you understand how to use this stuff. And how to keep track of it so that you don't lose it. Like I said, everybody's got a tale about, I had it all on a disk drive and that thing went down. We got to be careful about how you do backups and things like that. And again, some of that, I guess, can compromise your privacy as well, right? With the other things that you do to try to back it up and to make sure that you don't lose your access to your wallet and that type of thing, right?
Yes. So what I do is I like to put my private keys on very tiny SD cards, right? Like the ones from the phones, those tiny ones. Mm-hmm. And then what I do, or what I can do, or maybe did, right, is plaster them inside the wall.
Wow. And
you would never know inside my wall. And I know exactly where it is. In a whole house, you will never find this tiny SD card plastered and painted over in my house.
That's like a pirate treasure chest right there, right?
Yeah. So remember, all you need is your private keys, right, to access your wallets, and that goes with any crypto. And you just got to be creative. You just have to become creative now, and bury it wherever you like and get that treasure map, because only you should know where your money is, and only you should be able to take your money. Nobody should be able to come and swoop in and say, "Oh, we're going to freeze your accounts." No, because it should not work that way. That's my money. I earned it. It's none of your business what I do, unless I'm hurting somebody. Then you have all rights. I believe that. But if I'm not, and I'm just trying to live my life and grow some vegetables and do things the way I like to do things, it's none of your goddamn business.
Well, we've seen over the last 2 years, normal, decent activity has been criminalized. And criminal activity, like you're talking about, things that we've always recognized as being criminal, having a mob go in and steal everything in a store. Oh, that's fine. We're not going to do anything about that. But don't you attempt to go anywhere without wearing a mask. Now we're going to get you. That type of thing. And so I think a key part of this, Lootz, and the reason we want to talk about this is that as we can see this coming, and as we've already seen some of it land and be applied to us, we need to start thinking about this until before it gets too late. Right? It's like the people in Ukraine who didn't have the guns, and now they even if they get the guns handed to them, they don't know how to use them. And the people in Russia now are kind of figuring out, well, wait a minute, what do I do? The currency in the country is being forced to zero. And let me tell you, the same people that are doing that to the Russian people are going to be doing it to their own people in all of these different countries at some point in the future. Everything they're doing is creating chaos. And so, when you look at what is going to be unleashed with the supply scarcity, when you look at what is going to be unleashed with the inflation, the rest of the stuff, you need to prepare to be able to get your money into something else. And so I think that's the key thing about this, is really trying to figure this out and figuring out how you're going, getting comfortable enough with it, maybe just with small amounts. So in case you don't do it right, you mess something up, you haven't lost a whole lot of money, but starting to educate yourself about this. Yesterday, Lootz, I had on a guy who was talking about gardening. We have to make sure that we can produce our own food and do that in community. And so it's also important for us to be able to protect our money as well, and to make sure that that's not going to be taken away from us. We have a very fragile system right now when it comes to food, when it comes to money. We need to know how to protect that ourselves, don't we?
I think it starts with owning your money, right?
Yeah,
because we don't own the money anymore. So once we own the money, that's what crypto, I thought the blessing of crypto was until the transparency started. And then I was a big proponent of Monero, and then I was a big proponent of Pirate Chain because it's more advanced technology, right? And let me tell you real quick the differences. Pirate and Monero, right? When you send the transaction, Monero gets mixed into 15 other transactions. And then it gets lost. And it's possible it might be possible for them to figure that out. That's why some new technology came out with ZK Snarks called Pirate Chain. And when that came out, it had an anonymity set, an anon set, which is a rating a developer puts on a coin that tells it how anonymous it is. So Pirate has 500,000 plus anon set, right? So when your transaction goes into that pool of transactions, it's gone. It's lost. Wow. There's no way they're going to find that.
500,000. 500,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Even more than 15. That now.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Exactly. Now, is that kind of similar to, again, it's just like I was talking to the guy about raising food. I don't know a great deal about raising food, and I don't know a great deal about crypto. But I feel like I need to learn. I feel like our audience needs to learn a little bit. But I've heard in the past when they tried to track, the FBI tried to grab some money that somebody had in crypto, that they would run it through a tumbler. Is that kind of a similar situation to what was going on with Monero and with Pirate Chain, or is that something completely different?
Yes, 100%. It's a mixer.
Okay.
Right? So it's mixing things around. But it's always possible when it's so low that it could be unmixed, right? So, and mixing isn't really, the best solution. It is an obfuscation solution, but it's not the best. And Monero is great. It's been made it's like a fine wine over the years, right? It's been aged beautifully. But now we got better.
Yeah.
ZK Snarks is even better. And you know what I love about this economy is that every time they poke the bear, we make something better.
Yeah,
we make something stronger.
That's
right? So you keep poking the bear and we're just going to keep building. And what's going to happen is the technology that we're building, you cannot stop. You can't stop this technology. And these developers, they build with passion because they're angry. All right. Yeah. And you know what? I see them even angrier now because they have family members that are dying because they were told to take a vaccine.
Yes.
So they're even more passionate than ever. And guess who's causing this? They're causing this.
Yes.
They're doing this.
Well, and it's very key. We cannot, if it's not just them collapsing the economy, but it's them shutting you out of the economy if you don't get the vaccine, as you're just pointing out. And so how are you going to do if they shut you out? And we've seen already that they use the banks as choke points. I've been kicked off of PayPal. I've been kicked off of Venmo. I've been kicked off of Trovo and monetization off of DLive. They use the financial stuff as a choke point to try to smother you. And so if you're going to try to not participate in this in their economy that's going to require a vaccine, you better have some way that you're going to be able to transact with people. And that's the key thing that you're talking about is a big part of getting out of their system and building our own system. A key part of that is going to be the financial aspect of it, right?
And it comes down to making markets that cannot be stopped. That's what it all comes down to, making markets that cannot be stopped so we could all live again. Right? So we could sell things we want to sell and not be, censored by tyrannical people above us or below us, in my opinion. But so the new Techonomy, there's just think of every coin having a superpower, right? The superpower of Pirate is that you could hide your money and you could choose to show people what you have. The superpower of Cordal is that you could build a website anonymously. Nobody needs to know it's you, and you could sell your products on that technology. You got technologies like Komodo. Komodo is building some of it has the best code for decentralized exchanges, which we're seeing now getting forked everywhere because they tried once again to poke the bear, right? They came into Komodo and they tried to poke the bear, and now people are forking it. And that's the genius of open source code, is that people could clone it and make another one. And now you created a bigger problem. You cut off the head, and now there's 5 more heads. What are you going to do now, right? That's why I love this space. I love this technology and crypto space. It's my favorite. I used to work for a Fortune 30 company in a corporate situation, and let me tell you, it's nothing. This is if you are into technology, this is where you need to be. If you're a developer, this is what you need to be developing. If not for you, do it for your children.
That's
Make
right.
something that'll free them. And the best part about this is that we don't go to the streets anymore to protest. We don't throw bottles at cops. They're just people too. They probably don't even like their goddamn jobs, right? So what we do is we fight with technology. We sit right here and we fight with technology. We don't need to go to the streets.
That's right. Yeah, going back to the Depression, right? When the dollar lost its value and people were having a lot of problems, you had a lot of local communities that created their own local currency. And you can go to some museums now. You can still see the essentially a printing press, if you want to call it that. But the way that they created like wooden coins that people would exchange within their community, within their local community. And so in a sense, I see a lot of these crypto coins kind of following in that same tradition. You got a community, and it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be something that is complementary, can still, because there were very small towns that created their own wooden nickels or whatever during the Depression. So it would have some kind of a stability as the federal currency was totally corrupted and unusable. They would be able to have this kind of bartering exchange. And that's kind of the way that I see these different crypto communities. Do you agree?
Yes. And stability isn't, it's not even the regular dollar is stable, honestly.
Right.
So if you're looking for stability, it looks like it's there, but it's really not stable. So I look at Pirate like gold, right? But gold you could hide, and gold that's lightweight. And I could go to Italy and see my ancestors over there, and nobody would even know what I'm carrying with me because I got it memorized in my head, my passphrase, right? So there's no need for anybody. Nobody could take it from me. I love Pirate Chain. I love what it could do for us. And if people could open their mind just a little bit and see how close to gold this really is, with the fungibility part of it, I think we could change the whole world. I think the whole world could really be optimized, and people could have their power back. That's like one of the main reasons why to use this is get your power back. No, you don't want people to just be able to take your money just like that. Nobody should have that power.
That's right.
Right? They have to come in, they have to knock on your door, and they got to ask you for it.
Well, we know that the importance to their regime, because it's always the central banks and it's always, the big bankers that are behind all these massive moves that are happening. And that's a point of control that they have over us, is our money. And so that's the way that we can take back our freedom, a very important way, just as important as the food aspect, quite frankly. We have to have food, and we have to have ownership and control of our money. And today, that means privacy. So that's why I think it's so important to have that. Well, thank you. It's great talking to you. We'll have to get you back on with more questions, Lootz. And it's been fascinating. Yeah, been fascinating. Thank you so much. Is there any other thing that you'd like to tell people in terms of something you'd like to promote, or any other sources of information? We got the Privacy is Power book. Anything else that you would recommend to people?
Privacyguides.io. Privacyguides.io is where you can learn how to do everything you're doing right now, chats, email, but do it in an alternative fashion so that no one is monitoring you or surveilling you in any way. Mm-hmm. And there's also another one, privacyguides.io, I think.
Mm-hmm. Great.
There's privacytools.io and privacy guides as well. Both of those sites, and if you Google it, it'll come up, even though you should be using DuckDuckGo. It just learn, just take the time. I know, and the problem is that they don't give you time to think, these people, right? You go to work all day, you come home, you're tired, you have a beer, and then you're a zombie in front of the tube, the advertising box that I call it, right? Yeah. And just try to get a little power back. And how you do that is that you turn off that goddamn TV. And go to privacytools.io and start learning how to do everything a better way.
That's good.
Better. Protect if you have a family, it's even more important for you people that have families, because they can see what your child is doing. Do you like that? It's really screwed up. Yeah. Right? Your TV is listening to you. I mean, there's so many things that you don't know is happening to you that you really need to start learning. Oh yeah. Because once I found out, I mean, I'm always learning. I don't watch TV at all.
Yeah, it's all about constant. It's about constant surveillance. It's about knowing, feeding you their narrative and their information, and then watching you to see if you're going for it. Amongst other things. That's one of the things that they're doing. Well, it's been great talking to you. Your wealth of information. We'll have to get you back on, because I tell you, privacy is a key thing. It is the foundation for how we push back against this worldwide system that demands to know everything about us and demands to be omnipresent in everything we do. They want to be godlike, and those are the key things. Omniscience, omnipresence, and then their omnipotence to come in. So one of the things, you can take them away from being godlike if you take away 2 out of those 3 things. So that's a key thing. Thank you so much, Lootz. Great talking to you.
Let me get an R out of you. R.